Welcome to Technado with Don Pizzette, featuring sysadmin expert Don Pizzette, security specialist Daniel Lowry, and Peter.
Hello and welcome to Technado with Don Pizzette. I'm your host, Peter Van Rysdale. I'm joined, as always, by Don Pizzette. Don, how you doing?
I am doing great. We've got some great articles lined up today. You know, some interesting things going on in the IT world, so it'll be fun to talk about that. And, just general good time to hang out.
Yeah, normally they're all bad articles, but today we have some good ones.
Today's an exception.
Yeah. And to help us understand those, we have Daniel Lowry as well. Daniel, how you doing?
Hola, how's it going today?
You know, I can't complain.
You can lie about Don always being here, though.
Yeah, I can do that.
I noticed that you did that.
He's always here today.
Yeah, he's.
You know, speaking of which, I am going to miss, well, maybe not. I'm going to be at RSA at the beginning of June doing a little presentation there. So while I'm there, we'll have to see if I can remote in for the podcast or not. But if any of our listeners happen to be at RSA this coming June, I will be there, I believe, June 6th and 7th. I will be at the Moscone Center in San something or another.
Francisco.
San Fernandina.
I feel like we're doing an episode of some NPR talk. We're all just kind of just really nicely talking.
Good times.
Like
good times.
Yeah, good times.
That's because you're hearing yourself today.
Good times. It probably is.
Set it up a little different. All right. Well, as you said, a lot of news to get to. So let's go ahead and jump in with our first article, which comes to us from xda-developers.com. Microsoft Edge is getting a built-in VPN powered by Cloudflare. And I got to tell you, I kind of laughed. I think the time that you said, Don, that you use Edge a lot, even on like a MacBook.
I do.
And we're like, what's the point of that? It's Chromium based and all that, but something like this is the kind of thing that makes you think twice about going ahead and running that.
Yeah. Before we run too far with that, I have to ask you a question. Do you shop at Wall-Mart?
What did I say wrong?
XDA-developers? Just
Well, I'm trying to say it in a way that people can actually type
Do
it
you
in.
shop at Wall-Mart?
If I say xdadevelopers.com, someone's going to type in that.
all right.
There was
The
some
URL.
build up to that joke, but I enjoyed it. Yeah.
It took me a second because I looked back at the whole title going, the only dash I see is built in. And I'm like, was I supposed to say built
It's
dash
just,
in?
It's just XDA developers. But
All
yeah,
right.
if you're trying to say the URL,
I was trying to say the URL for
you were trying to help our listeners. I
Yeah.
can appreciate that.
Yeah.
But as Don says, screw you, listeners.
That's right. Speaking of trying to help our listeners, Microsoft, right? Constantly looking to improve Edge. Edge is a Chromium-based browser. You could make the argument, why bother running it? Why not just run Chrome, right? Plenty of
That is
people-
a great question.
Yeah. So I kind of did an experiment back in January and switched to using Edge on a few different devices on Windows, Linux, and Mac OS because they release for all three platforms now, just to see what that would be like. And I've actually really enjoyed it. I do find that consumption-wise, as far as like resources, is about the same as Chrome, not really any different there. But I have found that the synchronization between devices works a little bit better. It's really easy for me to hand tabs off between devices, which is kind of cool. But Microsoft is looking to add some new stuff, and some of the stuff is downright stupid, right? I mean, there's some really bad things they've tried to add in it. Their little built-in coupon finder thing and suggested websites and stuff. I turn all that off. But they are currently testing a free VPN, right? A virtual private network that's built into Edge where it can basically create an encrypted session up to a provider and then provide you secure connectivity. A couple of notes about it. First off, the tests at least are being done using Cloudflare as the VPN provider. So Microsoft is not providing the VPN. They're connecting to Cloudflare's VPN service. And the second thing is they are holding it to about 1 gigabyte of data per month, which is something you could eat up pretty quickly watching YouTube videos. But if you're just browsing the web, that's usually quite a bit. So yeah,
you can pay for more.
So right now it's just in testing. And so it's completely free. Eventually, we have to wait and see. Is it going to be ad supported? Is it going to be pay? We don't know yet.
So I'm curious because one of the features it touts is that it's harder to be tracked. Now, Microsoft, as we will see later in this episode, in our last article actually, makes a good portion of their money from ad revenue. Why would they want to make that less valuable for them?
So we have to be really careful in how we interpret a statement like it makes it harder to be tracked, right? Because you have to ask, tracked by who? Because if I'm on Microsoft's VPN or Cloudflare's VPN, the first legs of my journey to the internet are now an encrypted tunnel, right? So my ISP, let's say I have AT&T, so I have AT&T fiber at home. So AT&T would have no idea where I was going. They would just see my VPN tunnel, and that's it. So AT&T could not track me. But if I go to Outlook.com and log in with my Microsoft account, they know exactly who I am. They know where I'm at and what I'm doing. If I go to Google,
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you have to be logged in with your Microsoft account to enable this feature in Edge at this point.
Yeah, it's a part of your Microsoft account.
Okay,
Yeah,
so they're basically saying only we can track you.
Yeah,
now,
that's our data.
Obviously, if you log into Gmail or something like that, you still get that. But they're saying that we'll get everything.
and it's not. This isn't just a Microsoft thing. I don't want to call them out because
No.
if you're using NordVPN or one of
Everybody's
these,
horrible.
well, all the VPNs work the same way, right? They encrypt you to the VPN provider. They don't encrypt from the VPN provider to your destination. And so your destination knows exactly who you are and where you've been and all that. So you're really just basically keeping your data private from people on your local network and your ISP. That's it. That's all the privacy you're getting out of it. Now, if you're at Starbucks, you don't want the people in Starbucks to see your connectivity, and you don't want to trust Starbucks ISP. So a VPN has some value, but it's really only half the journey that you're going to take.
Yeah, you need like proxy servers and whatnot to really start anonymizing your actual traffic.
And Tor is the same way. Like once you go into Tor, you're nice and anonymous and safe. But once you exit Tor, if you hit Amazon's webpage and log in, Amazon knows who you are. Yeah, you show it's coming.
You kind of fed them credentials.
You did.
know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I mean, that's the purpose of it, right? You want to log in. That's fine that they know that that's you if you're using Amazon as a service. I'm kind of like... Sometimes I like the algorithm when it suggests things to me. Hey, maybe you like that. I finally, for the most part, though, it doesn't really suggest things that I find quite useful or that I would want. Every now and then it'll hit something. So I wish I could opt out of that. That would be good for me, since I'm paying to use your service anyway. I feel that should be an option for me. But hey, what are you going to do? I don't create the thing. They don't ask me.
Yeah.
So going back to what you were saying about them adding in some other things into Edge, since it is Chromium-based, do Chrome extensions work?
They do, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah,
Maybe I'll give it a try. Yeah.
When Edge first launched, it didn't have any extensions of their own, and you could just go to the Chrome extension store and install whatever you wanted, and they worked just fine. I never ran into one that didn't work. But now they have their own Edge extension store. But if something's missing from it, you can just jump over to the other store, the Chrome one, and install. Yeah, honestly, it works really well. I've been happy with it.
I'll give it a try. I'll report back. All right. Our next article comes to us from Tom's Hardware. All one word.
It's
no
Tom
spaces.
apostrophe S.
Yeah, Tom's is Hardware.
That's Tango Oscar.
.com. Verbatim launches Write Once external SSD with 10-year warranty. So I'm curious about this. So this is like a CDR, but not an RW. Like you can write to this once. What is the use case for something like that?
So
Backups or
backups is really the main use case, but also, and Daniel, you might have to correct me on this. It's non-repudiation, right? So if I get subpoenaed to turn over data, well, there's a chain of custody that has to be followed, and the judge is going to require that I show that this has not been tampered with. Well, if I backed the data up to media that cannot be changed, right? That's write once media, then that's admissible in court. I can submit that, and it obviously hasn't been tampered with because you can only write to it once. So that's the main thing. This isn't something that a home user would really use because it's probably going to be expensive.
that was my question. Does it make it cheaper that it's like single use?
No, and so I used to work for a bank, a regional bank. We had a lot of sensitive data, and a lot of it had to be retained. And we actually had two SAN, storage area networks, that were replicated between two physical facilities. But in our disaster recovery center, we had an EMC Centera box. And what the Centera was a giant, it was a SAN.
It's like a half man, half horse.
Very, very similar, yes.
Right, okay.
Yep. And except a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
And it was the size of a 42U rack, but it was all storage. It was designed where you could only write to it once. You could not change data once it was on there. It was called immutable. Is that right? Immutable storage?
Yep.
Yeah.
Then when
Immutable
it's
storage.
full, what do you roll that back into a storage?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we had to do that because we were FDIC insured and we had to be able to submit it. So this type solution, what Verbatim is launching, is way cheaper because now you don't need this giant SAN, whatever. This is just an external drive that you can attach.
This probably has about as much storage as that big thing did.
Well, it
way
looks
back
like the initial version of it has 128 gigs of storage, which is not a whole lot considering that your average hard drive these days is like 4 terabytes in size. So this is pretty small. But if you're just backing up documents or something, that'll carry you a long way.
Interesting.
But
All right, well, something to check out for those.
Well, I was gonna. If you really want to have some fun with this article,
I do.
continue to read. It says that we do not guarantee that you cannot overwrite the files on this thing. So just
I wonder
keep
if that's
that in mind.
legalese because of what Don's saying. It's like we don't want to.
Yeah.
Hey, if someone figures out how to hack this
Right.
thing and
That's
write back
basically
over
what they're
it,
saying.
we're not
You know,
liable.
Yeah.
So with the EMC Centera, their big selling point, I mean, that thing, it cost over $100,000. It was expensive.
Yeah.
They had gotten it certified by the Department of Justice. So it was actually certified and designated. This is admissible as evidence. So I wonder if potentially Verbatim hasn't been through that process yet and they're still working on it. I'd be curious to see. But, it's neat if you have a need for this type of media.
Another interesting little factoid that they pointed out in the article was about the 10-year warranty does not cover data. It only covers if the drive breaks in some fashion, we will give you another drive.
Yeah.
The data that you had on it that
can't
may
get your
be
data
like
back.
IP or R&D stuff could be just gone. And we're so sorry that happened.
But that's going to be anybody
Here's
that's
a new
physical
drive.
storage device. Yeah. This one's empty.
I saw the warranty and I wondered about that because, all right, let's say the drive fails.
Yeah.
It's been 8 years and the drive fails. What point does the warranty serve? You can't replace the data that was on it.
Right.
No, but you get a new drive for free.
But who cares? There's
Because you'll definitely want to use
And
that
also,
product again.
Don, tell me if I'm wrong. I got drives that are older than 10 years old. I can spin them up right now. They work just fine.
yeah, that's true.
Right. So what good is their little 10-year warranty?
No spinning required. This
Maybe
is
that-
SSD.
I guess it's a warranty. If it does physically break, I can replace it.
But again,
So
why would you
I'm
want
not
to?
out the money?
Yeah.
If you don't
drive.
trust this anymore, why do you?
Right. It's very markety.
You can sell it on eBay.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
strange.
I get the right. You know,
All right, now that's funny. Because you can't sell it on eBay.
Right, 'cause
your
right
data
once,
is on
no.
there and you can't take it off.
No, if
You
you
get the new
get the
drive
new
and
drive
sell
and
it.
you're like, well, I'm not using this crap again.
Yeah,
At least you can get some money back.
yeah.
by
You got to
selling.
lie to somebody
But
else.
I hadn't thought of it until just now, though. Like, you can't get your data off of it.
Yeah.
So there
Yeah.
is no resale
There's no
value.
resale, yeah.
Unless it's blank, like you
paperweight.
said.
Yeah.
Wow, what a strange invention.
But how many people do you think are going to buy them and then find out, oh crap, this has already got some bank's information on here?
they didn't have a price on here, did they?
No, because you
I
mentioned
didn't see
cheaper,
one.
but you didn't. But I didn't see anywhere
Yeah.
a dollar sign.
Well, it's definitely going to be cheaper because the Centera hardware was nuts. But
and this one sucks.
I'd be curious. I imagine the price would make it where somebody wouldn't buy it by accident.
Okay.
You know,
So you think it's considerably more? It would be considerably more than a 128 gig drive, an external drive.
Almost a given, right? Because you can get a 4 terabyte drive for under $100.
It's funny to me. This I know it's not because of the use case you described, but it sounds like, well, this is a drive that doesn't do all the things that your normal drive does, so it's more. Like what? Yeah.
Yeah, especially if they can get this one
If it gets
certified.
certified,
Oh, then it'll
you're-
be worth the money.
You're hammered down.
Trying to see if I can find a price real quick, but I cannot.
$80,000.
While Don does that, I'm going to read the next headline, which I meant to ask you about ahead of time. How
to pronounce it?
So this is going to be this is a fresh read,
Kool-Aid.
psych read, if you will. This is from StorageReview.com. GRAID, SupremeRAID SR1010 GPU-based NVMe RAID announced.
SR-1010.
I feel like you're making
That's
fun of me.
funny.
So SR71. This is the
The SR.
Blackbird.
Yeah, the
No,
Blackbird.
What did I do wrong there?
Wait, the
storage.
GRAID SupremeRAID SR1010, isn't that Elon Musk's kid?
I believe, yeah. It's Grimes and Elon's kid. Did I say most of that right? Is it
I have
Grimes?
no idea.
I
So,
thought you nailed
Oh,
it.
thank God.
yeah, I don't know. And I grabbed this article because it actually highlights something really interesting. So I've never heard of.
Does it? Because I didn't understand any of that.
So I thought it was GRAID, but I could see it being GRAID, but it's spelled GRAID. And the reason I think it's probably GRAID is this is a company that's focused on RAID controller technology, so redundant array of independent disks. They want to make, obviously, highly redundant storage for
What
servers.
does the G stand for in their case?
Like GPU, right?
In this case, I believe it does stand for GPU. That's what really sets this apart, is that it's GPU based. Now, I've been, I don't want to say complaining, maybe
Don never complains.
whining. I don't know. I've been doing something about how when you look at computers today, the GPUs are able to get more done than the CPUs in a lot of cases, right? A CPU has to be general purpose, but a GPU is focused on graphics rendering and high mathematical processes. And that's why when people mine Bitcoin and other kind of cryptocurrency, they will leverage the GPU, not the CPU. It doesn't matter if you have an i9 or an i3. If you're pushing all the workload off to your graphics adapter, then you get really big things done. But what I've been complaining about is the big things that are getting done are totally stupid, like NFTs and Bitcoin, which is just a waste of everything. Well, this company actually looked and said there's got to be something we can actually use these GPUs for besides playing video games, but to put it to a novel use. And so this is the first time I've heard of somebody doing this, where if you have a RAID controller and you're doing like RAID 5, right? When you write to a RAID 5 array, your data gets written to one disk. It gets broken up into a stripe across more than one disk. So it's going to write to at least 2 disks. And then it has to do a parity calculation and write a parity bit on a third disk, right? Well, that calculation is a mathematical operation. It takes time. So if you have a hardware RAID controller, that happens pretty quick. If you don't have a hardware RAID controller, you're doing that in software, which is not so quick, and it kills your disk I/O, your performance. But what these guys did is they said, well, you got a GPU. What if you've built out a massive storage array and you're trying to do parity calculations as fast as possible? Why not leverage the GPU? And that's exactly what they did. Is they basically found a way to push that processing load off onto a GPU, and they're able to get some performance numbers that are really, really impressive. So they were able to jump up from, really high. They're getting like 19 million IOPS, so input-output per second, or input-output operations per second. There we go. And that's for reading. And on writing, 1.1 million IOPS and 22 gigabytes per second throughput. And that's while doing RAID 5 or 6. RAID 6, you write your parity twice. So that's really, really impressive. And it's just a new way. I've not heard of somebody leveraging a GPU to do this, to accelerate storage operations. Yeah. So now you might have a database server where you don't give 2 craps about a GPU. So you're like, I need fast storage and I need RAM. That's what a database server needs. Well, now you might want to look into, if I had a GPU, could I accelerate the storage performance?
Now the question becomes, will this impact GPU sales? Right, we're already having trouble with scarcity, right, with that industry. Is this going to create more of an impact? Is it going to affect them being able to manufacture these and actually get all of them? Is it going to drive prices up? How's that going to work? So
I don't think so.
Okay.
And the main reason is they did not use an off-the-shelf GPU. So it's not like they said, hey, we're going to use an NVIDIA 3090 or something.
Manufacturing the whole thing by themselves.
They manufactured their own. So that's the SupremeRAID SR1000. That's their card, and the SR1010. So you buy that card from them. That's the GPU. It's got to be that one. In the future, maybe we'll see that change, and maybe it will leverage the off-the-shelf stuff.
Question number 2. Can it be repurposed to do things like Bitcoin mining?
It would seem like it would have to be, right?
Fingers crossed.
Man, if God loves me.
You're taking all the goodwill out of this one. But this card was just released 2 days ago, so we'll see what happens.
And they're already sold.
Yeah.
I doubt. I've never heard of GRAID, so this company might be gone 2 years from now. A lot of these are. But once that Pandora's out of the box, or something's out of Pandora's box.
Pandora was the girl.
Yeah.
She
was already out of the box.
Pandora never.
Once you open the box and there's that little bracelet with charms in it.
Yes.
I thought it was a dead cat.
Yeah. It's both dead and alive. But only in the quanta.
Not after I open it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there we go. Anyhow, people finding novel uses for GPUs.
Good for them.
I like it.
People are crazy.
They are indeed.
All right. This next one comes to us from TheVerge.com. The EU, US, and 32 other countries, implying the EU as a country, just announced a, quote, declaration for the future of the Internet. It echoes rules like the Digital Services Act. So we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all internets are created equal.
Your mom's a dead cat.
So I assume China and Russia are on this.
China and Russia chose not to sign.
Oh.
Yeah.
You don't say.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Is that because they don't let their people use internet the way like we do?
Well, they let their people use the internet the way that the government deems appropriate.
Oh, yeah. I heard that.
Yeah, yeah.
So what is this? Is this something that was actually announced by the governments of these countries, or business leaders in Finland have all said yes?
No, so this is the actual governments, and a couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to interview Bruce Schneier, and I asked him at the time. I said we were talking about IoT, and I said IoT is just a total train wreck, and how do we fix this? How do we get to where people aren't pushing out these devices that are just like they have full vulnerabilities day one and never get patched? And he said the only way we're going to get past it is to have the government pass regulations. And I disagree with that. And, there's different philosophies. I'm a small government person, so I want less regulation, not more. Other people disagree, and that's fine. Everybody's got their different
I
opinions.
want the government to tell me if I want less regulation.
That would be nice, wouldn't
I'm
it?
on the other side.
Well,
Wait for them to let me know.
Yeah.
so
How do I feel?
many people agree, though, with Bruce. Obviously, he's a big name in the world of cybersecurity, and he's been lobbying. And so, various government agencies have been moving closer and closer to passing regulation to try and rein some of this stuff in. And so there have been rumors for the last 2 years that people were getting ready to start drafting some kind of regulation. Well, a little bit of a surprise for us this year that they came out with this declaration. Now, a declaration is not a resolution. It's not a
It's
regulation.
just a statement that these are true facts.
No, not even. It's really like
Well,
just,
what we believe.
here's a suggestion
Like the
of
Declaration
what we're
of
thinking of doing.
Independence ourselves. We hold these truths to be self-evident, right?
Yeah. So this is the Declaration for the Future of the Internet, and a lot of countries have signed it. The EU, so all of Europe, basically, and you've got the United States, the United Kingdom, several other countries have all signed on to it. So if you're in any of those countries, which if you're our listener, you likely are. Actually, I didn't look to see if Australia signed it. They very likely did. We'll just assume. let's push that on an entire country.
The Turks and
At,
Caicos?
at this point in time, that might be an on the fence right there.
Yeah, I don't know if Australia signed it, so I'm not gonna go out that far. But basically, it dictates a number of things. And now, keep in mind, these are not saying we're doing this. It's saying we should do it, right? So it's saying we should have net neutrality. We should not allow countries to restrict portions of the internet or affect the way that traffic flows over the internet. So net neutrality is a big part of this, which is funny because in the United States, we do not have net neutrality, right? So, but the United States signed this saying, yeah, you should have it. So that shows
you should have it.
Right. That shows you how effective this is.
Yeah.
It also says we should not allow fragmenting the internet, which is what China and Russia are doing, right? So they've basically built walls around their internet so that they can disconnect whenever they want. And we shouldn't use disconnecting the internet as a weapon. That's in here, which everybody does now. So that's just like the de facto first strike in any kind of combat is disconnect the country's internet. So those are all things that are in there, as well as a lot of copyright protections, ways to protect user privacy, but also media privacy. So it's not a terribly positive declaration. A lot of the stuff that's in there, a lot of it does support
Like freedom of expression and speech and so on and so forth.
But there's plenty in there for
the fact that,
corporations too.
The fragmentation of like, hey, don't splinter off into some known faction of the internet so that you can, finally control the people's use of it. Don't weaponize. I mean, those seem like good, at least ideas.
Yeah.
So it's nice to hear that they are at least behind that in some capacity, even if if they're doing it lip service. I mean, I guess that remains to be seen. Like you say, we are currently violating our own declaration at this point.
We are. And, one statement that's a part of it that I want to highlight, the one that I'm going to be watching, is they said that they would be reducing as much as possible the environmental footprint of the internet and digital technologies. All right. So 2 takeaways here. So one, the e-waste that we generate. Right, with cell phones basically being disposable after 2 years, a lot of what is it, the rare earth minerals or whatever that are in them, and some of the toxic chemicals and other things that are in them that we generate every single day. So obviously that has an environmental impact. But for me, cryptocurrency. Right? The sheer amount of electricity wasted on cryptocurrency every single year.
You could fire up 6 coal plants just for the daily use of that crypto mining.
It boggles my mind. And I don't know how it is for you listeners out there, but we're in Gainesville, Florida. And in Gainesville, plastic straws are illegal.
Yes.
It is illegal to have a plastic straw in Gainesville.
Shot on site.
And
Yes, you will
it
be,
is
man.
a
It is.
what is it, corporal
They
crime?
do not
Straight to
play
jail.
around about it.
Straight to jail.
Straight to jail. Yeah, straight
So
to jail.
all the restaurants had to switch to paper straws. Now I get it, right? Single-use plastic, it's a waste of plastic, whatever, but it's just straws. Like, what environmental impact did that have compared to cryptocurrency?
Well, especially since seeing I think 90 some odd % of the single-use plastics are used in China.
Yeah.
And come from
By
China.
turtles.
Yeah. They're just like, watch this, Billy.
We're supposed to be protecting them, and they're the
I
ones.
can't get it out.
in
No.
these
Some
straws.
environmentalist will find me and they'll blame America.
Yeah. So I feel like people are going after the wrong targets.
Yeah.
And I feel like some of the technologies we're deploying right now are hugely wasteful of electricity and our resources, and we really should focus on that. So there's a statement in there that says they're going to do it, but it's so vague. Reducing as much as possible. Well, as much as possible is 1%.
Yeah.
We can reduce it 1% this year.
I mean, well, 1% doesn't seem like a lot so in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
By the way, I've got all the countries here. Australia is included.
Well,
Oh,
good
look
for
at that.
them. Look at them making steps in the right direction.
Trinidad and Tobago.
Ooh, got
Both went
both
in,
of 'em.
but they're only counted as one. So,
Okay.
What is interesting, I found in trying to find this list was
What about
I
the
found
island of the Tuamotus?
not listed. I did find and the United Kingdom is listed as one. So like Scotland didn't get its own credit or anything.
Yeah.
Well, it's not a country, right? It's
Well, we were having this discussion
Oh, okay.
before. Yeah.
Country inside the country.
So what's interesting is Kenya is on here, and they issued a statement going, "Well, we didn't sign that."
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Hey, really?
They're like, we haven't approved this to our.
It was just
committee
some
yet."
guy who
Yeah.
pretended he was with them.
Well, I think they just assumed,
Yeah.
Kenya's going to do this. They're
Yeah,
cool.
obviously.
Kenya's always down.
Yeah.
Kenya is like really technologically advanced. They have a lot of infrastructure.
So it didn't sound like they weren't going to do it, but it sounded like they were like, well, we haven't rubber stamped this yet. The weirdest country I saw in here, the only one that I was like, I don't even know that's a country, Cabo Verde,
Cabo Verde.
which is a African country as well. Haven't even heard of that.
How about that?
Yeah, don't know.
Look at me.
I know Cabo Wabo.
Yeah.
Cabo Wabo.
Sammy
yeah.
Hagar
Cabo San
signed
Lucas.
it.
Is
not
that on there?
listed. Yeah. Cabo Wabo. That's a tequila, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Palelu.
Listen, he can't
Palau?
drive
Palau?
55, all right?
North Macedonia,
Red Rocker.
not South Macedonia. They don't care.
Is there more than one?
Not South
I
Macedonia.
don't know.
Bunch of-
Just list North Macedonia.
I thought that was just Macedonia. What do I
Look
know?
into that as well. Next week's Fun with Flags.
Yeah, it's Geography Week.
For that.
It's
Yeah.
geography. It's where in the world is,
Well, they list the European Commission, but then they go on to list Greece, Germany, It's Moldova. I thought that was
Now
from,
you've just
from the
confused
Princess
me.
Diaries. I'm all right.
is this a thing that's happening, or are we just making stuff up?
Yeah, I should make it up. Countries here. Some of those aren't real. Check in if you're from those places. Let us know at technado.com. What we're going to do, though, real quick, is take a short break and come back and look at some Deja news and then launch a new segment right after this on Technado with Don Pizzette.
My name is Dana Morrison. I'm the IT director at Grace Christian School in Raleigh, North Carolina. I work with two technicians, Buddha and Anthony. We cover all grades at the school. We figure that we support approximately 800 end-user devices.
My name is Buddha Nepal. I work as IT support here and AV specialist. I moved into IT department and our first meeting, other team members asked me, hey, what's your IT background? And I was like, I don't have any. We had this SharePoint project that we were rolling out. So I was able to go to IT Pro TV and watch. And by the end of this month, we were actually migrating all our files to SharePoint.
I can use IT Pro TV's supervisor portal to check the progress of my technicians so I can see what they're looking at. So when we were doing SharePoint training, I can go in and I can see that Buddha is hitting on that content.
I really want to see hands-on how they do things, and if there was an IT Pro TV, I don't know how I would have done that.
IT Pro TV has given us the ability to level up our technicians to a point where they can decide this is important for me to learn and go out and learn it.
At home, I have Apple TV, and there is an app there, and so I actually watch on Apple TV. I I watch it on my iPad too.
Saturday mornings, I still get up early. 6:30, I go grab a cup of coffee. I sit down on the couch, and I typically watch 2 or 3 episodes as I just kind of increase my own learning skill set. I would recommend IT Pro TV to any IT team that is looking to extend their knowledge. It offers a great, easy to access, interactive, entertaining environment. It's just a great tool for any IT professional.
The IT Pro TV app is available for iOS and tvOS. The modern user interface makes navigation easy. Recently watched videos can be found on the home screen, as well as our daily live streams. Choose landscape mode for larger viewing. Access the entire course library by clicking on the play icon. Navigate our content by category, certification, and job role. Learn where you want and when you want as a premium annual member by downloading episodes for offline viewing. Watch on the go and pick up later on any of your favorite devices. So head to the App Store and download the IT Pro TV app.
Welcome back to Technado with Don Pizzette, and we've got to look back at some stories we've covered before, see what's new with them in our next segment, which is Deja News.
Deja News.
That one turned up to 11 there. That was great. Yeah, I got. Have we done Deja News in the new studio yet? We've got our good friend Denzel here from the classic film Deja Vu.
I don't think I've seen that.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
It's a good one. It's
I'll check it
one of
out.
those psychological thrillers, a little bit like Tenet. Remember Tenet, where they kind of went back in time?
Did I see
Did you not
that?
see that?
I haven't seen it.
That
but
was good, too.
I almost didn't
You're giving me
recognize
homework.
Denzel because the fire was in front of him instead of behind him.
So
you know?
I thought this was Man on Fire.
The fire would be behind him. Yeah.
That's what I thought this poster was from, so I'm not familiar. I'm going to have to watch
Yeah, it's a good
Deja
flick.
Vu and Tenet.
Tenet was good. Tenet's one where immediately afterwards you're like, all right, I got to go watch that again because now I'll
Really?
understand how this happened.
Gotcha,
Because there's a lot of
gotcha.
like, wait, which timeline is this?
Oh, it's timelines and stuff. See, you're talking my language, bro.
Yeah. It's
Is
like
it Denzel?
No, it's not Denzel.
Oh,
It's the
okay.
guy from Ballers, and I can't remember his name. But yeah, great actor.
Okay.
Young actor. That's going places. He's going places.
He's
But
going
anyway,
places. He's amazing.
Deja News going places as well, and this one comes to us from thehackernews.com. QNAP advises to mitigate remote hacking flaws until patches are available. And yeah, QNAP, despite us having that one back there, or two, right?
We do, yeah. Not for critical use, but
Thank God, because it would not be working if it was for critical use. So what's their problem now, and how does this relate to what has happened in the past?
All right, so this has been building up this year since January, really. We reported earlier in the year about some vulnerabilities in QNAP's, they call it their QNAP operating system. So their little operating system they run, QTS, that there have been some vulnerabilities in the file sharing protocols that are available, and actually more than one vulnerability now, each of which allow an attacker basically remote code execution. So an attacker can get in, elevate their privileges. There was a malware package that was written that would push ransomware out to encrypt your storage device. That would be bad, right? And then basically ransom your data for Bitcoin or whatever they were charging at the time. So we've reported on all that in the past. And as time has gone on, the QNAP folks kept saying, like, hey, we're going to put out a patch, don't worry. But in the meantime, if you've got a QNAP running QTS, then you need to turn off SMB version 1. And then a month goes by, and here's another vulnerability. Oh, by the way, we don't have a patch for this yet. So if you're running QTS, then you need to disable Apple File Protocol. And then another month goes by. I think the first one was you need to disable UPnP. And now this is all really adding
Why
up
don't you just
quite a
turn the
bit.
QNAP off?
And now you get to today, where here we are in it's May of 2022. It's been 5 months, 6 months since some of these articles originally released, and QNAP is still basically saying the same thing. Like, you've got to self-mitigate. They do not have patches for these. Even the latest firmware that's released is not fixing a lot of this stuff. Microsoft themselves has kind of given up on SMB version 1. We've heard they've started testing removing that. So it's not entirely QNAP's fault, right? They use a lot of open source packages, and they're having to deal with that. But it is a little frustrating to see this. And I do have a QNAP myself at home. So like you mentioned, the one we use here for just temporary video storage. I have one at home. This is my Plex server. And it would annoy me if I lost the data on there, but it's not critical by any means. But for me, I know about a lot of these vulnerabilities, and I basically disable the services I don't use. So I already had AFP turned off. I have SMB is completely turned off on mine. I only do SSH connections to mine, SFTP. So if you treat it securely, if you're a sysadmin, if you know better, then you can use the device securely and it's fine. But your average person at home that's buying these things, because they do target the regular home user with a lot of their storage devices, they don't know enough to secure these, and they're starting to really build a bad track record.
Maybe that was by design.
Maybe, yeah. They have, I think they're a Taiwanese company. I think they're based out of Taiwan, right? I was just trying to run through my head if they have Chinese connections.
Open source, like, are there not open source alternatives to the things that they are using?
So
could they not like spin up some different firmware with different things? So
I've dug into their stuff. It is based on Debian. So it's just Debian Linux, and they're leveraging a lot of the technologies that are there.
Yeah.
And so on those, like if you deploy, Debian will say, hey, we got a secure distro because Samba is not installed by default. But if you install Samba, it's limited to version 2 by default. And so that's what they really need to do, is to change their appliances. If they're telling you to self-mitigate, like, they should be doing that for you.
Yeah.
And if you choose to enable SMB1, that's a different story, right? But that's not what they're doing.
Yeah. It's like, it almost seems like, was it that on Liar Liar, when he goes to his, your client is in trouble again. Do you have any legal advice for him? Stop breaking the law, asshole. It's like, stop using broke stuff and giving it to me and selling it to me. And, let's do better. How about we opt into security?
There you go.
Right? How about we try that? Well,
so, it's really interesting because you'll hear things, and even here in this article, so this is on the Hacker News, like they say, until the updates are available, they're recommending users disable AFP. The flaws have been patched so far in QTS 4.5.4, 2012 build, blah, blah, blah. So they're telling you it's patched, but they're also telling you to disable it. So there's some real mixed information that's coming out on this, and it's a bit messy. Just know that if you have a QNAP device, first off, it is absolutely not worth it to connect to their cloud services. Do not do that. You should disable UPnP because your QNAP will open up all sorts of ports on your router if you allow that. And then disable any protocols you don't use. If you don't have any Macs, even if you have Macs, they don't use AFP by default anymore anyway. They'll use SMB. Turn off AFP.
For the home user, maybe an easier solution, maybe not a perfect one, but an easier solution would be to firewall that device and only allow, like, hey, you shouldn't be giving it access to the internet, right? Just no internet access. You do not go out to internet. You make a little firewall rule. If you're coming from this device, you say no.
Yeah, in the QNAP App Store, they have what's called the Q firewall.
Yeah.
And I have that installed on mine, and it is restricted just to the local, the IP addresses that I use in my house.
That's not the QAnon firewall?
That's the
It's not the QAnon firewall, yep. In fact, the only remote access I allow to mine is Plex connections, because I run my Plex server on it.
Yeah.
So I do allow remote to that, but everything else is blocked. I mean, I think the real challenge here is that as IT professionals, we look at some home users, like, my mom will call for help. You're like, oh, come on. But
like how Don is exasperated by his mother.
sometimes, yeah.
Cry for
So,
I don't mind when Don's mom calls.
but it's somewhat unreasonable, the expectation that's being placed on home users these days.
Yeah. Sometimes when you guys talk about things I don't understand, I'll just go off on different tangents on the internet. And you said at the beginning, Bitcoin or whatever they're using these days, and it made me think about hackers. They used to use Western Union all the time, and I was like, has Western Union suffered because of Bitcoin? According to the articles I'm finding, they're doing just fine, and they're actually offering a way to buy cryptocurrencies through Western Union. So they're like, hey, if the hackers are moving, we'll move with them, because
got to go where the money is.
yeah,
right?
we need to continue to be the number one go-to source for international crime. And Western Union is taking that on. But let's move on. Staying in Deja news, but looking at another article that we've reported on before. This is on Phoronix.com. Concerns raised over the new NTFS Linux driver that merged last year. So last year we covered it when
We did,
that happened.
yeah.
But what are these concerns, and should we be worried?
So last year when we covered this, Paragon Software, they make a commercial NTFS driver for Linux. You can buy it. I think it's like $20 or $30 to get a license for it. They made the gesture of saying they wanted to open source their driver. Now, the NTFS driver that comes with Linux is great for reading NTFS disks, not so great for writing. It's got slow performance when it writes, and there are some data corruption scenarios that can happen. Obviously not ideal. So most production environments won't use the native Linux kernel driver for NTFS for writes. They just use it for reads, and that's it. Well, the Paragon one does reads and writes and does it really well. The performance is pretty good. It's not as good as like XFS or something, but it is adequate, right? So they said they wanted to open source it. That sounded good. At the time, Linus Torvalds rejected it. And it was because they just took this giant ball of messy code and submitted it and said, here you go, right? So they did very low effort on it. And Linus said at the time, you know, it's a nice gesture, I guess, but if you're not going to maintain it, if you're not going to take the time to clean the code up and publish it in a reliable way, then you're probably not going to maintain it. You're not going to run it long term, and so we don't want it. And they rejected it. Well, Paragon did clean it up and resubmit it, but here we are a year later, and they've done absolutely nothing in that time. Not a single pull, or, you know, a code change. A commit. Not a single one in the last year. And so it looks like what Linus thought would happen actually did happen. Paragon basically threw it out there and has somewhat abandoned it. And now I could get it. Like if it was perfect, there were no flaws, no issues, and you know why patch something that's working perfectly? But it's not, you know. And
but it's open source. Isn't the community supposed to maintain that?
They could.
Yeah, you could totally fork this and like start supporting it yourself if you had the means to do so.
Yep. So many people, myself included, had hoped that this would become the new default NTFS driver that we could read and write to NTFS and Linux. It is annoying when somebody gives me a USB key and I plug it in my Ubuntu system and I can read, but I can't write to it or whatever. It's frustrating.
This is Microsoft's technology, though, right? They why aren't they releasing some sort of driver for this for other platforms?
So they could, but
especially since they're
other platforms.
Well, I mean,
Windows 11.
But you have like Windows subsystem for
only
Linux now.
platform
Like times have changed. I could see back in the day when it was real competition, but now they're kind of working hand in hand. You would think the ubiquity of NTFS would push them to do this.
I think the challenge of it right now is that they have it copyrighted, trademarked, whatever. That's their proprietary intellectual property. And if they were to open source it, they would kind of lose some of the protection that's around it. So NTFS is considered a business advantage for them.
I wonder if that's like a patent they're making any money on.
Great question.
Hit the bottom line.
Yeah. Like, are QNAPs and other storage devices using NTFS as their storage? Like,
not internally, no.
It's only in the servers, right? That it's really like Windows machines use NTFS. Everything else kind of uses other stuff.
Right. Yeah.
So.
But NTFS is a good file system, and if it were open source, maybe we would see it used in more places. But as it stands, we don't. And even like a Mac, if you plug an NTFS USB key into your Mac, it'll read it, but it won't write to it.
Right, you can't write to a thing.
Right, you can't do it consistently.
FAT32 is that? Yeah.
It will do FAT, right?
XFAT.
Yeah. XFAT.
XFAT's kind of the recommended one, but it doesn't do journaling, so you get data corruption a lot.
That's fun.
That's fun. That's fun to show off that I knew that term.
Oh man, ain't nothing like this file is corrupt. I'm sorry. What now? Please don't let that be the please no.
What if I just pull out this USB key without ejecting it? Would that fix it?
Don't do that.
Yeah. That was in what so far I have dubbed the favorite Yo Mama joke that a listener submitted.
Fat,
took a picture. Your mama's so fat that I had to reformat the USB key XFAT because the picture wouldn't fit.
That is funny.
The picture was over 4 gigs.
Yeah.
I'm ruining the joke now.
Yeah,
darn
it was quality.
we get the spirit of it, Don. You got
it. Yeah, we know she's big. She's a big woman. All right, let's take a look now at our last segment today, which is a brand new segment, The More You Know.
SpongeBob.
Yeah, I was going to use the NBC one, but
It's trademarked.
It goes right into. Well, I'm sure this is right here. It goes right here.
True.
Copyright Nickelodeon.
Yeah, it does do that.
I left that part on.
Eat it, Nickelodeon.
But the more you know goes right into the Peacock, and it's going to be hard to loop. So this is good. All right, so this is from visualcapitalist.com, which I think is a site that does a lot of these kind of infographics, things like that. Yeah, and this is a cool one that Don found. How do big tech giants make their billions? And I assume it's on the backs of underpaid employees. Oh, yeah, specifically. I mean more specifically. So what do you want to do? You want to just kind of go down the list here and look at what's interesting?
So I came across this while I was researching something else. I had this theory that I needed proved, and I came across this. And
yes, a goat can eat a full solid lead bar.
yeah,
Come to find out.
there's times we hear stories, right? Like Amazon, where Amazon needed a bunch of servers in place, but they knew they weren't going to use them all, and so they thought, hey, let's rent off the stuff we're not using, so we'll have it available. So during Black Friday, we've got the infrastructure, but the rest of the time we can rent it out. And so you begin to wonder, how much money does Amazon actually make from AWS?
Less than I thought. I thought it would be a bigger chunk by this point.
I agree. So
Seeing as that they're the large cloud provider on Earth.
They are, and it gets into the market share in a minute here, but yeah, it's AWS makes up 13.2% of Amazon's total revenue. Now it may be.
I was about to say, can you do the math real quick on what is 13.2% of $470 billion?
Brazilian dollars.
Yeah.
But I won't. But maybe it is more profitable too, though. Than because they don't have the same amount of costs as they do.
It is just revenue that's being measured. Yeah.
The online stores portion is 47%.
Yeah, so in the case of Amazon, their online storefront is where they make their money, right? So when you go on Amazon and buy stuff and get it at Amazon Prime or whatever, that's where they're making their money. There are other things like their streaming video and subscription services. That's a drop in the bucket for them. It's very small. But it turns out AWS itself is actually a very, very small portion of the revenue. So it's interesting to see.
$61 billion, according to my math.
Holy moly. But
It's still a small portion.
So,
yeah.
So it's super tiny.
But it's interesting to see, when we think about AWS and how Amazon, like that must be a big part of it, it turns out to be a very small thing. So they have so much innovation going on there, and they've dominated the cloud server market, and it's a small business unit to them.
Yeah. And what's crazy is even Prime subscription services is only 6.8%. So I expected that to be more the recurring revenue portion of it.
Help me out with third-party seller services.
So that's 22%.
What is that?
So like anybody can you can register a store on Amazon.
Okay.
Like, you know how when you buy stuff on Amazon, sometimes it ships from and sold by Amazon?
Yeah.
But a lot of times it's sold by somebody else.
Gotcha.
And
That's
there
the third
are other
party.
places where you can check out using Amazon on other sites.
So
as well.
basically, like if I was a seller, then I could use Amazon as my storefront.
Right. And they get a
I
cut.
pay them a commission
Yeah,
for
this
doing that.
this says, because I don't know if you can see it on the mobile version, but it says includes commission, shipping fees, and other
But it did
services.
say that, but I just didn't understand what that
So a
means.
lot of that's probably pass-through costs, if they're paying shipping straight back out.
Yep.
So let's scroll down. The next one here is Apple with a total revenue of $365 billion and change. And
Well, they got their moneymaker there.
man,
don't they?
that iPhone.
Now, this is what I was researching when I came across this article. So, last week we broke the news about Apple killing off the macOS server app, right?
Yeah,
and
how bad is that going to hurt them?
I had a lot of people reaching out to me about that, saying, I love macOS as a server. Why is Apple doing this? Why doesn't Apple care about businesses? And, they're killing
They
the
don't
profile
care
manager.
about businesses.
And the reality is they don't care about business, right? So I wanted to go and find a breakdown, like where are they generating the revenue? What I wanted to know was how much money do they make off of macOS? And so I came across this breakdown. It was really interesting because the iPhone, now not the iPad, this is strictly just the iPhone, is 52.5% of their revenue. So over half their money comes from iPhone sales. iPad's another 8.7 on top of that. Then almost 20% of the revenue comes from their Apple Pay, Apple Music, Apple TV, their subscription services, right? So if you add all that together, it's over 75% of the revenue comes basically from their mobile devices and their associated services. Macs, so when I say Mac, we're talking about Mac Minis, iMacs, MacBooks.
Computers.
Computers. Anything running Mac OS. 9.6% of the revenue, less than 10% of the
Which is
revenue.
less than the wearables.
Now hold on.
AirPods.
I watch a lot of television, and everybody on TV uses a Mac.
Yeah.
So I'm under
Are
the
you only
impression
watching
it's
Apple
like-
TV?
No, I actually don't have Apple TV.
Because I love those shows where like they're always on.
Yeah. Everything's iOS.
Ted Lasso has done a really good job.
Yeah.
Of, like they integrate the text
Yeah.
messages on the screen so you
Yeah.
kind of see them and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's impressive.
So-
it's crazy the percentage of income they have to that 365 billion too. It's 94 billion, whereas Amazon is only making 33 billion off of their much higher 469 billion revenue.
Yeah,
Crazy.
yeah, they get bigger margins. Apple does,
Yeah.
but it does show you like when because I might have even said this when I say Apple doesn't care about Mac OS. That's absolutely true. It's a very, very small line item on their revenue sheet. They do not care about Mac OS, and I don't really know why they keep it around. I think maybe so they have something to run internally, but they just don't care about it, and so that's why they're not moving it into the enterprise market. That's why they stay focused on home users or whatever, because they don't have to change anything. They're already focused on home users.
It would seem that they, like you say, they would kind of abandon that because, I mean, they do have to spend money on developers and people writing patches and updates and supporting the customers that are buying it. You would think that they would just go, let's just slap Linux on this thing and call it a day.
Yeah, I feel like if you could run Xcode on an iPad
Yeah.
or on iOS, like if you could compile iOS apps on an iOS device, they probably would discontinue macOS.
Yeah.
We'd see it go away. So point is, the reason I wanted to bring this up here is if you're looking at your future IT career and trying to plan it out, maybe putting all your eggs in the macOS basket is not a good idea. Like the writing is kind of on the wall for this one, and it may dangle around for a little while, but it's not looking good.
And we don't have to go through all these numbers for the other ones because we'll put the link in the YouTube description here. YouTube, which makes up over 69% of Google's advertising.
Yeah.
Along with other properties. But anything else that's stuck out to you? I'd say the one thing that,
Sure.
that surprised me is, Meta's crazy. It's like a big circle. But Azure makes up 31% of Microsoft's revenue compared to what we were talking about AWS only being 13%.
Yeah.
Well, they're starting to push away from like on-prem stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. And
They
Azure,
want everything in Azure.
to talk about market share, because we were talking about that a second ago, Azure has 22% of the cloud market. AWS has 36%. So, smaller share, but it represents a bigger chunk of their.
But it shows us the focus these companies have. So Microsoft obviously is doubling down on Azure. They're going to continue innovating, coming up with new solutions. Like Azure is going to be around a while. That's one that you can count on.
They're probably the best diversified Microsoft when you look at it here.
Yeah,
Nothing's over 31% is the highest with Azure.
Did you notice on Alphabet how much the Google Cloud of their revenue was?
I didn't because I don't see it there.
Yeah, that falls under other bets, 0.4%. So Google Cloud is not even a blip on their balance sheet.
But there's 9% of the cloud market share according to this as well, which is nuts.
Well, I think it's because they're overall.
Are they giving it away?
Yeah. Yeah, it's
I might want to get me on some GCP.
it's not strong.
But it was 86% of the search market right now, with Bing coming in second at 8%.
And Facebook, like you said, it's a circle. 97.5% of the revenue is ad generated. Like they are an ad company. They want your data. If you think you can trust Facebook, you absolutely cannot. Like it's a fact.
And 2.5% other, like I was trying to think, I was like, they have the Portal device
Oculus
that cannot
Rift
be
headsets.
that. Oculus, they own
Heroin.
Oculus.
Yeah.
Those
Heroin. They are
Heroin, black tar heroin.
Yeah. Fentanyl.
all the bad ones. Yeah, that would be higher.
And, they do make
I say
money.
that jokingly. I'm not trying to disparage Facebook.
There's probably stuff like the Facebook Marketplace, right? Because they get a cut of that, don't they?
I think on higher ticketed items, they take a cut. I mean, most of that is just. Oh yeah, because there's people that ship on there. Yeah, because obviously a lot of that is face to face in person.
I've never actually bought anything on that, so I don't know.
It's a free for all.
Ted
It's a
Nugent,
wild
right?
place.
Cue Ted Nugent.
Yeah, he's on there as well.
There's a song he does called Free For All.
Yeah.
But I thought it would be a fun one to talk about here on the podcast because it just kind of shows what these companies' focus is, right? Apple, you can't blame them. They're focused on the iPhone because that's where the bulk of the revenue is coming from.
But we talked too about they're more profitable because they own that entire ecosystem.
It's a vertical
Yeah, they've got the software, the hardware, and everything. Whereas Amazon is selling other people's products on their platform, so
Yeah.
going to be higher overall revenue, but lower profit from that. So interesting, but definitely cool to see it visualized like that. So. Nice find. All right, want to let you know about some webinars coming up. Speaking of Azure, we have what is Azure Bicep coming up on Thursday, May 5th, and you can head over to itpro.tv/webinars to register for that one, as well as all of the future ones, and past webinars will be archived there as well. So Adam Gordon and Wes Bryant are going to talk about how to use the power of Azure Bicep to work for you, Thursday, May 5th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, the same day this comes out. So
That makes way more sense. I just thought Adam was going to remove the skin off of his arm.
No,
this
not what
sounds
is Adam's
more right.
bicep.
Yes,
it's what is
gotcha,
Azure
gotcha.
bicep. Yeah,
Yeah, so if you like ridiculously named technologies, be sure to tune into that one.
exactly.
Azure Bicep. Somebody should get fired for that.
Dude, we've been having this conversation around here. It's like, are they just sitting around going, what's the most ridiculous thing we can name things?
What do they have like a theme? Or there's tricep as well. But
Yeah. Here's deltoid.
Yeah.
Did I make this joke last week that I'm waiting for Azure Glute?
Yeah, I think if not here, you've said it around.
It's a good joke. You can bring
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
I'll reuse
Can
that
we run
one.
that Deja News intro? Deja joke. Also, the next webinar coming up after that is going to be Thursday, May 19th, with Daniel Lowry and friend of Technado, John Hammond.
Whoa.
I'll be joining you.
I know that guy.
And you're going to be doing, you got the new video wall
I do.
over there you're going to be having some fun with. So a little bit of a different format.
Sophie's
going to
be there, too.
Sophie's going to be in there taking the questions live as you go. So we'll be hitting you guys with those questions as they come in. So a lot more interactive than our other webinars for that one. You can join the conversation for all things cybersecurity. Is there a theme you guys are doing on that one?
Not really. We're just kind of like, the theme is let's all have a conversation about cybersecurity.
Okay, so
And-
whatever the people want to talk about.
We're going to kind of get the ball
rolling.
rolling with whatever, and then we're going to be watching that chat room and seeing if there's anything interesting coming from there. If not, we'll just keep our organic conversation kind of going until time's
Yeah.
up.
I'm just going to put in a bunch of stupid questions.
Dude,
the whole
go
time.
for
It's
it.
going to be great.
I would actually enjoy that.
Like physical security
Yeah.
things. My brother keeps stealing my diary. All right. Also, while you're on that internet, head over to technado.com. You can check out a little bit more about us, see all the past episodes, learn about the team here. You can order some Technado swag. You can reach out to us and tell us things about Don's mother or...
Lovely woman.
yeah, we want to know... what did we ask before? What countries you were from, if you're on one of the countries, the 30-some-odd countries that have signed on to the Declaration of Internetness. But head over there, and also you can click the big orange button that says sponsored by IT Pro TV. It's in the upper right-hand corner, and you can get a 30% off coupon code for the lifetime of your personal subscription to IT Pro TV.
True
You
story.
can also request a team trial, and find out all the great features available to teams from, IT Pro TV. Hey, if you're in London too this week, first of all, I'm not.
He hates you.
Apparently, you need a valid passport to go now. It's a stupid thing they're doing.
Who made these rules up?
Yeah, government. But head over to Learning Technologies at the Excel Center, which is over in the Docklands area, of course.
Of course.
Right next to Greenwich, where the clock is.
With the meantime,
Greenwich
I heard they're very
Mean
mean.
I read about it because I was gonna go look at it.
But now you get to
Because you're in
go to the
Eastern
Century
Hemisphere.
Tower.
Yeah, I'm gonna go
Look at that.
to the clock downtown. Maybe
Yeah.
to check that out. But yeah, they drop a red ball every day at 1:00, so the boats passing on the Thames could see it, and they could set their clocks on their way out of town,
Okay.
and they would have their clocks set.
I like interesting facts.
that's
You know that running amok
one
is
doesn't
a verified medical condition?
No,
Yeah. It starts like where you are
like
right
scabies.
now. No, not like scabies. It's more of a mental condition.
Oh, okay.
And it manifests as a
I've
physical
always told my scabies is in my head.
thing. Your scabies is in your head.
So that's
I think you need to get a different doctor.
Yeah.
Just like, when
It's like, sir, you do not have scurvy. Again.
Your pee is bright red, but
Is this the next QAnon thing that scabies isn't real?
yeah. Scabies is a government conspiracy.
Have you seen my favorite of those? Like,
Are you a
fun
flat
conspiracy-
scabier?
It's birds. The birds aren't real.
Yeah.
The birds are
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
It's great. Well, it's a joke, but
Oh, okay, thank God.
Yeah.
So
I-
here's the world we live in where I have to question whether or not that people think birds are real.
I'm pretty
is
sure
real.
it's a joke. I mean, there's a whole Reddit
Fingers
sub
crossed,
where
right?
the people post all kinds of great things.
Fingers
but check that out.
crossed. Are you a flat birder?
Yeah, birds are flat or one-dimensional. All right, everybody. Great episode today. A lot of fun news, and I'm sure we'll do that more you know segment for things that maybe aren't news, but fun
to talk
random
about.
facts.
It was good times.
And we'll see you guys all next week right here on Technado with Don Pizzette.